Hello, hello.
Hi.
Happy New Year. It's Rochelle, and we are back for our first episode of what I'm now calling the Artful Leaders Podcast, because this year we are going to be creating an audio version of these interviews. So, hi there. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching today. My name is Rochelle Archer. I'm with Artful Leadership Coaching and Consulting, and my work is really about helping educators and youth development professionals to impact young lives sustainably by putting their own well-being first so that they can lead with a full tank and really create a culture and a community of care. And the way that we do that is by leading artfully. And this podcast is really about tapping into the wisdom, the experiences, and the practices of folks who are leading in the arts and transformation, healing, education, and social justice. And of course, there is a car alarm that is going off in the background. Because I live in urban San Diego. But today I am really happy. Can you hear that, by the way? Okay, it's over. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, as we were saying, through the beeping car alarms is, today we're going to be talking with another leader who has done a lot of work in promoting civil rights, in connecting folks to the arts and expression and healing, and doing a lot of multicultural exploration, especially here at the Borderlands in San Diego to Mexico. And so I'm super excited to have you here today. Sue Miyazi McDevitt is here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Rochelle.
You're welcome. And the reason why I thought it would be a great idea to have you on the show is, you're an elder in our field, and I met you in probably here in San Diego or in Switzerland when we were studying expressive arts therapy, and you've been doing this creative work for a long time. And as we've gotten to know each other a little bit better, I discovered that some of the work that you've done as an activist in the county where we live really has allowed me to do the work that I've done in nonprofits. And so I got really excited about sort of your legacy and hearing about how you made the shift from that work to then expressive arts, and then your adventurous spirit kind of taking you to Mexico and all of the explorations that you've done there, and what you're putting together in your memoir now, and the resources that you have for folks who are really wanting to do this powerful arts-based transformative work with folks who are speaking Spanish. So I'm really glad that you reached out to me and that we can have this conversation today.
I'm thrilled.
Awesome. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and, how did you, one of the things that you shared with me was just your passion for, civil rights and women's rights, and really making sure folks had access to services here in our county when a lot of those things were limited. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that sort of activism work that you did before I was born.
Way before you were born. Well, I'm 77 and I have a long history. So I feel like one of the grandparents of the nonprofit world in San Diego. And I started in civil rights in the South in the 60s, and then moved into women's rights in the 70s and worked in community clinics and so forth. But was part of this whole movement in the 70s to broaden services to everybody, particularly people who couldn't afford social services, clinic services. And so I just got into it through having done community organizing in civil rights. And it was just it was a natural move and was just part of creating the, like you said, the nonprofits that exist now. And I think probably one of my best stories is that I attended in 1977, probably before everybody on this podcast and video were bored. But in 1977, I went to Houston, Texas for an international women's conference. And at that time, I was really active in domestic violence prevention and women's shelters. And I met Lindy Boggs, who at that time was a representative from Louisiana in Congress. And she was trying to shake the tree for some funding for domestic violence. And so I just remember that as being a real high point, because we were able to get the Casa de Paz women's shelter open in San Diego because of that connection.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I just, sometimes I look at my life and I say, good Lord, I've had about 13 different careers. That was a high point, I've got to say. And, working with women's community organizing, it was just, it was a natural fit. And I still hadn't discovered the artist within yet.
Now that was going to be my next question. So, we met in the expressive arts field,
Right.
studying with Judith Greer Essex at the Expressive Arts Institute and the European Graduate School in Switzerland. And I was just curious, like what led you to that path of the arts and transformation, coming from that activism and, connecting folks to services and stuff?
I was always an artist. My grandmother taught me everything she knew about watercolors when I was 8 years old. And so I always gravitated in that direction, but I had a fear of failure until I finally took my first watercolor class when I was 48. Okay. And I just got inspired. And then I heard on NPR a few years later an interview with an art therapist. And I went, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do with my life. Woo! So I just started to explore expressive arts and got into the master's program. In 1999, I was in the initial class. One of the two old ladies in the initial class.
I love it. And I love that story because I turned 50 this year. So I'm 49 right now. And it's just so exciting to hear from folks the kinds of like career changes and things that you can do midlife to like do something totally different. So if you're passionate about whatever it is and however old you are, you can make those changes. So I love that.
Well, yes, my life is an example of reinventing myself every few years. And after I got my degree, I was just really tired. And, I felt like, to become the artist that I really want to be, I need to be retired from the city of San Diego. Because this is getting to be, that full-time job is getting to be a drag. So I was able to retire by moving to Baja and having, less financial problems hanging over my head. And it had been a place where I'd vacationed, camped. I had driven across Mexico in a 1968 VW camper in 1974, 75. Felt really at home in Mexico, and I had the language under my belt. And so at least rudimentarily, and I improved a lot as I went along. And so I just started living out my life of an artist. I would travel, I would paint, And then I was invited to show my artwork in Ensenada. And that was very, very fulfilling. And I just kind of got bored with it, kind of the way things go in my life. So then I started volunteering and giving back and teaching young kids and then high school kids and the arts and poetry. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I had the energy to almost keep up with them. And then I didn't have the energy anymore. But meanwhile, I translated all of my expressive arts exercises and processes into Spanish. And I gave all my classes in Spanish. And high school students, you know, they let you know when you've really goofed up.
They sure do.
And fortunately, I always had a couple of bilingual students who would have mercy on me and help me out of whatever I had fallen into, whatever mistake.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it was incredibly rewarding because I got to see how the expressive arts doesn't have borders. And how, you know, I set up a classroom with the freedom for kids to express themselves. And they took to it. I mean, they loved it, just being so creative with whatever supplies I put out. And, you know, we did singing, and I also tried to get each one of them to be able to speak and share what they had done, how they felt about what they had done, and what it represented to them, a little bit about their story. So, you know, it's very, very rewarding to see, oh my gosh, these kids love creativity and respond.
Yeah. And I think when you and I were chatting about this before, we we're kind of talking about sort of the difference between expressive arts education or experiences in the classroom versus like a traditional art class, right? Where it's like, it's almost like you offer a buffet of things that young people can just kind of follow their own impulses to create something that really expresses whatever is alive for them in that moment within the framework that you're using for your class or whatever topic or theme, and how exciting it is for young people to be able to explore that and express that, and how important it is.
I think it was, yeah, I think it was something that they really hadn't been offered before. And so they really responded. And I could see, you know, growth during the semester. And when I put the artwork up on the walls and covering tables, and we had every semester a demonstration of what had gone on in the classroom. And when one of my students just, you know, she picked up the microphone with all the visitors and said what she had gotten out of it. And I went, oh my gosh, that's what I intended. And here she is, like, she got it, you know. And she was
worked.
Yeah, it worked. And of course it worked for others, but she was able to articulate it in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
So, and then I got tired again. Youthful energy.
Yeah.
And so I looked more to, you know, working with adult women and mothers and housewives, which was kind of, you know, an interesting, well, are they going to respond? And
I bet they did.
it took a while to warm up. I learned that the word art, don't ever say it. Don't ever, creativity, self-expression. Those were the words in Spanish that, the little magic started happening. And so that's how I ended my career in Baja, was with housewives who were taking 2 hours out of their week of cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and they were doing something exciting and creative for themselves. And I just found this to be so, rewarding that, it kind of left me on a high.
Yeah. And I think that women's work is so powerful because women are so used to giving all the time and caring for others. And, when I worked at the Monarch School, we used to have a group for parents, but it was primarily moms who would show up. And my colleague, Ann Davis, and some other folks helped run that. And it was just so powerful to see these women connecting with one another, being a community, coming out of isolation, not feeling so alone in all of the burdens and challenges that they had, and then being able to just goof off and play and have fun and dance to music they liked, and get a little paint on their face, and and just have that freedom to just explore and have fun and leave feeling refreshed and feeling like I'm my own person. And that was really powerful.
You've said exactly what was happening. And honestly, I didn't know what to expect with very humble, mostly poor housewife women. And my connection was through a former high school student. She encouraged me to offer it at the group. And then she came, brought her mother, her mother brought her mother, and so.
Intergenerational expressive arts therapy.
And the most exciting thing was that the former students, she just got what we were doing. And I would offer something in my best Spanish, and then she would say it again, but in a way that was just a little more something they could understand. So I began to realize that she wanted to be mentored, and that she was a willing and eager teacher herself and facilitator. And so that was probably the most rewarding part of the experience, totally unexpected, that she agreed to take the group after I came back to San Diego.
So that's beautiful. What a full circle there to have worked with someone as a young person, mentored her, and then have her take over that group. And something that you alluded to in your story about her was also that eagerness to sort of welcome those intercultural relationships and to support. And you talked to me about just what you discovered in Mexico as far as like being welcomed and being supported and embraced by the community, and being embraced by women and young people as an American, as an English speaker, and all that you learned there. And you had like a beautiful phrase that you heard in Spanish, and I just was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that interweaving at the Borderlands that really
Well, I
became
think
so important to you at that time?
I think the most salient or just the most obvious thing about being interwoven, just on a very practical everyday level, the power went out. And the power went out all of San Diego, the southwest of Arizona, and all of Baja. And I realized suddenly, oh my gosh, we are all on the same electrical grid. Who knew? But it was kind of symbolic of the fact that our cultures are so intertwined. And I was at a kind of a thank you luncheon for those people who did volunteering in Baja, and it was given by the Kiwanis Club or some group in Rosarito, and they brought up the word entrelazado, which means estamos entrelazados, which means we are all interwoven. And I think this is true of all of the borderlands, which is 2,500 miles long, but especially between San Diego and Baja. There's just this, I call it mutual appreciation of our cultures. And, you know, I mean, San Diego could not function without all of the medical workers who live in Tijuana and come across the border every day.
Yeah.
So I have a little anecdote that I'd like to share because I just remembered it a couple of days ago and wrote it down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very late in my time in Mexico. It was in 2018, but and it was before I formed the women's groups. And I had asked an artist and poet friend of mine who was really my best friend in Baja, Liz Duran, you know, I really want to work with adult women. And I'd love to see, you know, how this is done in Mexico. And, you know, kind of feeling like, well, you know, what can I learn? Where, you know, who? And she's, oh my gosh, my good friend, Martha, is giving a one-day workshop. I just took it in Ensenada, and she's giving it again this weekend in Tijuana. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this sounds perfect, because she's been working in women's empowerment for many, many years. And she's been a teacher in Mexicali, and a therapist and group facilitator. So Martha is just kind of like, what? Anyway, I just signed up. I paid, you know, it was like there was no thought to it, you know, I'm going to go. And then, of course, I had these reservations like, gosh, what if I'm the only American woman? Oh, gosh, what if I can't find the place where we're supposed to meet? Gosh, oh. And so I had all of these things rummaging around. Then I finally just went, you know what? You've been doing this for years. Just get in your car and go to Tijuana. You will find the place. Don't worry. So I get to the parking lot. I get out of my car, and this woman that I do not know comes up to me, throws her arms around me, gives me a warm hug, and says, oh, you must be Sue. Liz told me to be looking for you. I'm like, oh, you must be Martha. And that was kind of the essence of how my entire life in Baja if I could put it in a capsule, in a nutshell, that is how I felt. This sense of inclusion, warmth, belonging, friendliness, and this just mutual appreciation that, just because her friend said, expect Sue to arrive. And she was just primed to accept me. And I'm like, you know what? This is like a moment, when it was just so clear. But my entire time in Baja was so similar. I met artists and poets and everyday people and potters and native peoples. And, was invited into humble homes, and I loved every minute of it. And it was because I was warmly accepted and embraced and included. And I couldn't have asked for a better life.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So when the pandemic hit, it was time for you to come back to San Diego.
Well, it was very interesting because I kind of had a wake-up call about my health and well-being and living alone in an aging retirement community, and not having support within my neighborhood, my immediate neighborhood. I was in a very isolated upscale, although I lived in one of the lower scale houses. But I was in a golf community. I don't know how that happened exactly. But it was just I got to a point in my post 75 life, got to take care of my health. And so I had made a decision to come back to San Diego to take care of my health. And I didn't know COVID was happening. I mean, I did have an inkling that something is up, but we hadn't had our first case in San Diego yet.
So the timing was just like right on the cusp there.
Well, I got here and I was stuck. I got here, walked right into lockdown, and I was going to go back and keep the group going and, be a resource person. I was going to pack. I was going all fell apart, but it led me to the writing my memoir of my life in Baja and my stories of adventure, of artistic growth and development, and a lot of stumbling and falling and inner, I mean, wherever you go, there you are with all of your problems you've had all your life until
and then especially when you're alone a lot, it's right in your face. So
the memoir is my labor of love to share the kinds of things that I'm sharing with you and your audience about my experience in Baja, which really was magical. I mean, there were some moments of suspense, let me say.
Great word.
That will keep you reading. But secret is things came out well.
Clearly you're here and you're all in one piece. So
I'm all in one piece. And I'm actually during COVID, because I haven't been driving across the border, back and forth, I'm in pretty good health.
Yeah.
So I just, I've come to a point in my life where I would really like to not only share the book, but share the resources that I gathered in all the years of teaching and facilitating in Baja.
Yeah.
And to share, to somehow connect with Spanish-speaking women who would like to collaborate in, some kind of, here in San Diego, creating something for Spanish-speaking women and using the expressive arts. And so that's kind of my underlying reason for being here, is that I realized, oh, I need to get out in the world and say, hello, hi there.
Yeah. So that's kind of our call to action today is, if you are a Spanish speaker and you want to kind of implement these kinds of arts-based practices for growth and transformation and healing and connection, Sue Miyazi McDevitt has all kinds of tools for you and really is looking to collaborate with you and connect with you. So if her stories resonate for you and you want to connect with her, I'll put, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you? Is your email?
BajaArtist@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. I'll put that in the comments. BajaArtist@gmail.com. That's super easy to remember.
And then of course, text, you can use my phone number, and I'm Sue Miyazi McDevitt on Facebook.
Okay.
So people can also Facebook me.
Yeah. Awesome. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your wisdom, and so the magic of the adventures that you experienced. And I wish you all the best with your memoir, and you'll have to let us know when it's actually complete and it's coming out and folks can get their hands on it. And if you do any like storytelling events or whatever it is that you decide to do with that, it'd be really fun to.
All sounds exciting. Towards the end of the year.
Yes. Yeah. And, thanks for reaching out. And for those of you that have been with us through this whole episode today, thank you so much for listening and for, prioritizing, I think power of the arts and story and all of that in your life, in your work. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode. Thank you so much, Niyazi, for being here today. If you have any last words for us, this would be a great time.
I think what I learned in Baja, we are all interwoven. And especially here in San Diego, we have an opportunity to interweave with our Spanish speakers. And so that's where I would what I would leave you with is we have so much to learn from each other. And it's a very exciting process to me.
Yeah.
And I look forward to my life as an elder, every day.
Yeah. I love that. And that excitement that just keeps you going is super inspiring. So thank you so much. It is. And you're around the same age as my parents. And it's just, I love it when I see, when I see folks who are in a different phase in their lives, like continuing to have things you're excited about and you have to offer and ways you want to connect with others. And so I'm really happy to be able to be a part of that. So email BajaArtist@gmail.com. And if you are looking for these kinds of practices in your school, in your youth development organization, you can reach out to me. But thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will see you soon with more great conversations with artful leaders.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everybody for watching.
All right.
And listening.
Yes.